Last year, I designed a brand strategy after joining a small team. Here's what happened and how I thought about it. So here we have the full canvas with the brand strategy that I have designed last year. The first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm gonna explain this canvas and exactly step by step how I have designed it. So the first thing that we can see here, we have the deployment strategy. And as you can see here, we have all the semantic commit messages. As for example, if we develop something that would break the whole application in general, which is a major change, then we include something like breaking changes. And then it means that it will bump up the first number of the versioning tag. So I will just go through all of them and then I can explain to you. Then we can see here that we have the fit, which is a minor bump. That means that it's a feature, but it doesn't break the already changes in the code. It only adds a new feature on top of your repository or your project. And a fix where you just fix something in the code. And for that, we have the patch bump. So as you can see here, we have the tag versioning as it is constructed with major, minor, and patch. And it takes all of those three. And then for the rest of the types of the semantic commit messages strategy, we don't bump up the tag. So if it's a free factor or chore or a doc or a style or just a test, then we just commit the message, but it's not going to be included in a new version tag. Then another thing that I have designed in this branch strategy was to have three different branches or type of branches. One is feature, one is fix, and one is hotfix. For the feature one, the purpose is to have only feature task inside it. So you usually create this one when we develop a new feature. For a fix branch, the purpose is to create it when we have to fix a bug. And then for a hotfix, the purpose is to create it when we have to hotfix it, meaning that we have to fast fix that specific bug without waiting for a full branch strategy or a release strategy to have it in production. And then for others, we don't have any prefix. We just create a branch and then we merge it inside the default or inside our, let's say, master branch. And the idea is, as you can see here, it's a quite big canvas. But the idea in general is that you start with a development where you create one of those branches, where you also skip the branch, as I said, the branch prefix, as I said, if you just have a quick task or an experiment. And then from that on, you just start the development. So all the commits will have to include the semantic commit message strategy. And then for the CI/CD part, as you can see here, we have the agenda or the legend, I would say. For the CI/CD part, whenever we commit a specific code, then we have to do something in the continuous integration, which for this part of the brain strategy will be to run the local test, integration test, and the security scan. Then when we finish with the development work, we just create a pull request, which will target the development branch. So for this branch strategy, we will have two branches. One, which is a development branch, in which we are gonna work while developing something. And then we are gonna create our specific pull request from, let's say, feature branch to this development branch. And then one, which is the master, where we'll later, I will show you, but in general, the idea is to, from that master branch, create a release and then the deployment for production. Once we created the pull request, we have the CI/CD pipeline where we again run the unit test, integration test, some linting, and then we build, let's say, a Docker image just to test it in our development environment, if we have one. As a side note, all those CI/CD pipelines are designed from our internal work, and they can be anything else specific to your repository. Then when we review all those changes and we know that everything is fine, all the tests are passing or the CI's pipelines are passing, then we merge it to the development branch. we create a release branch, which this one will include whole work until now that has been developed inside the development branch. And here I want to explain a bit more about that, because here you can say like we have two different branches, let's say. One in which I'm developing myself for the backend part, and then one in which my front-end developer is developing something. And then we have to have all those two branches merged into development. They are splitted in their own responsibility and or their own work in that specific feature. And then both of us have to merge those two branches inside the release branch. When we have this release branch, we are gonna run more CI/CD pipelines. For example, we can have final testing by running or spin up an environment from that specific feature branch. Let's say we have a server, or we just spin up locally where we have all the work done from that branch, and then we test locally if everything is working between front end and back end. That's the most simple, let's say, example that I can give you. And then if everything is ready for production, and then we have tested all the testing, we have iterated through all the bugs that we have found, then we merge it into master, and then we create the tag release, and then we deploy it to production. And this is simple in theory, because this is just a full straight pipeline that you will have to do inside the brain strategy. But now it becomes more complicated, because let's say you create a feature branch, then you have merged everything inside this pull request here, inside the merge development, and then you have everything inside the release branch. But here you have found a bug, and then your branch is already merged here. So how you do that? You have to iterate all the way back here, where you have to start development work again with that specific fix. So for that, we'll just create a new branch with prefix fix. Do the work for that, fix the bug that we have found in our release branch while testing everything in a spin-up environment. Then create the pull request again, review it, merge it to master, and then include it inside the release branch again. So it's just a ongoing work, I would say, when we have a feature that we have to release in general. But then this is more where it gets more complicated. Then we have fixed everything, but somehow, something we didn't think about it, we just merge it inside the master, and then we don't have this release branch anymore, because we just release it inside the master. So in theory, it was ready for production. But then when we were in the master and we have deployed that production, and then our customer has faced that new feature, then something happened, and then we have a bug here where if we go through this whole straight pipeline where we have to again create a branch, open a pull request, merge it into development, then create a release branch, then again test it out, and then if it's ready for production, go to the master, then it takes a lot of time. When we could just create a new hotfix branch, which just keeps this whole straight pipeline for the brain strategy. And then with that, we just create a pull request that points to the master. So we create a fix to a hotfix branch. We set up our scripts or pipeline in general to accept that so that it can be merged to master. And then it just creates directly a tag release, and then it deploys to production, which takes less time than just do the whole thing that we have here on top of this hotfix branch. And then the same thing we could do for our release branch. So let's say we don't have a fix, as I said before, because as a fix in general, what I thought about back then was that when we have branches such as future, fix, or in general just feature and fix, then we have to create a pull request to dev and then to release. But now what we can do with the hotfix, we could just create a hotfix branch that is accepted to have it pointing to the release branch, so we can merge it directly inside the release branch. And then again, we just merge it to master. So we have three types of work that we can do. The simple one, or the one that we would usually do on a daily basis, where you just create your development work, create the pull request, and so on, go to development, create the release branch, iterate through it, and then if it's ready for production, merge it to master. Or you iterate through this stabilized release, final testing, and you find some bugs or anything like that. Then you could create hotfixes which are pointing directly to that release branch, and then you merge it inside. Or if your release branch is merged to master, you could create just again a hotfix into master, and then it will go in the same pipeline. It will just create a tag release and then deploy to production. As we also can see here, our CI/CD pipelines that we had back then were to again have unit test, integration test, coverage, build, and coverage scanning. All of those were because, for example, for the coverage, we needed to be able to also push the security scans and coverage for our Docker image. But in general, back then, I was coming from an enterprise team where basically I was used to have this kind of strategies, working on a modular monolith project where everybody was pushing code every hour, 24/7, because we had a lot of teams from different time zones. Where exactly now I was switching in a team where we were only 4 developers and we were only developing for 8 hours a day, where things had to be simplified. And then thinking about this right now, I would say that for a startup, it doesn't make sense in reality, because after 1 year, when we now think about it, we have already scrapped it at all. Because from that moment when we have developed this brain strategy last year, we have pushed our first tag release, and then we have stayed on the version 1.0.1, if I remember correctly, until this year, because everybody was just merging their development or their branches inside the development branch. And then from that, we were just pushing Docker images with that tag, which the tag didn't change because we didn't even merge to master from that point. So we had only one pull request that was merged to master to create one tag release. That's it. So this year we have sit together again and we talked about it, and we decided that it doesn't make sense to continue with this one, where we could just have a simple strategy where everybody creates its own pull request in this specific repository, and then it pushes a Docker image with the commit hashtag inside the master branch, and then from that point we just deploy it. That's simple in theory, and in reality I would say it doesn't make sense right now to spend more time on having a really full-blown brain strategy as this one. And this decision was because you are in a small team right now where you have to ship really fast, where in an enterprise team you usually have more processes to go, more teams to talk with about this feature, or have to take decisions. Where in a small team you're just 4 people, or let's say 6 people, where you just have to take decision really fast. There doesn't have to be a PO engaged or any like each team's manager or anything like that. So because of that was the approach that we have taken this year, after just 1 year where we have decided that it's a full-blown brain strategy in general. So If you enjoyed this video and if you have found something new and if you really like it, please leave a like. I will leave you also this canvas inside the description with the semantic commit message documentation. And see you next time.